Michelle Alexander's The Nation article has caused quite a stir in the political world. She notes that policies Bill Clinton enacted, policies supported by Hillary Clinton, decimated Black America. What are your thoughts here?
So I have mixed feelings about Michelle's article. I want to first say that Michelle is an important African-American scholar, and her book that's come out, I haven't read yet, but I've heard amazing things about it. And I want to kind of bifurcate my response here. On the one hand, I want to say that it's important to shed light on what the Clinton years were and what they weren't. And there's this sense now, I think, now we're some 20 years later, to look back with the degree of nostalgia about what those 8 years were. It was a period of unprecedented economic growth, a period of I think, although Congress and the president did have their fights, they were able to kind of come together on some issues and do some pretty big things. But one thing that Michelle does do, which I do take issue with, is really kind of the theme of the entire article, which is that African Americans were duped by the Clintons. And my problem here is that I believe that, one, in some level removes African American agency, as I say that it indicates that we were not able to properly vet and select a president. I think we knew what we were getting, at least we knew what we wanted to get. And I think we projected onto Bill Clinton this idea that he would be an African-American savior. He would go out and champion those issues that would be most beneficial to the African-American community. When in reality, Bill Clinton was always a moderate. He ran as a moderate. He wanted to reduce the size of government, which he did with welfare reform. And yes, as it turns out, welfare reform actually wasn't a great thing for a lot of African-Americans. Michelle points out accurately that money was shifted from the safety net to building prisons. And she also accurately notes that some of the numbers that we see about poverty and jobs were a bit skewed when you think about African Americans because a lot of them were in jail. But I do think that it's important for us to appreciate what did and what didn't happen. Yes, Bill Clinton did go on the Arsenio Hall show. He popped on some sunglasses and played quite competently the saxophone. And what that did was it made us feel comfortable with him. It indicated that he shared some of our experiences, right? He was also a young boy in a kind of a less than well-to-do family. Frankly, I think he was pretty poor. And yes, a lot of African Americans grew up that way. And so I think that there was a sense of kinship with Bill Clinton that was more, to be very candid, a fiction of our imagination, right? Our imagination in terms of what we wanted him to be and represent than what he actually was. Bill Clinton was a politician running for office. And Bill Clinton and his advisors determined that the way to get the African American vote, not necessarily to pander to them, but rather to make himself likable to them, and to show that there were some similarities between his upbringing and, frankly, the kind of person that he is, and the kind of people that he wanted to vote from the African American community. I guess the question of whether or not Hillary is on the hook for the policies of her husband. I think it is true that she has and continues to indicate that she supported her husband, in all of his Arkansas races, and then again as president. But I do think it's important to draw distinctions. Hillary Clinton has a quite robust resume of her own as Secretary of State most recently, and then again before that as a U.S. Senator from New York. And even as First Lady, she championed a variety of issues, some of them consistent with the president, some of them not. Some of them she kind of went out and did her own thing. But that was 20 years ago, and I think that it's unfair to hold her or anyone else hostage to positions they've taken 20 years ago, particularly when they've since then realized that perhaps they made the wrong decision. In the case of the Iraq War, that's something that comes to mind. I think Hillary and Bill have both expressed some concerns about the position they took with respect to the crime bill in the early 90s. But let's look at what Hillary's saying now. And let's not focus on this concept that we were duped. We had an imagination. We knew what we wanted. We were hurting. We African Americans were hurting under since the Nixon years, really this war on drugs, which really amounted to a war on African Americans in inner cities. And we wanted to see a change, and we hoped that Bill Clinton would do that. And in many ways, Bill Clinton did things that we hadn't seen from any president before that. I mean, look at his cabinet. Ron Brown was the Secretary of Commerce. He had all kinds of diversity in his cabinet. That was something we hadn't seen before. But the reality is that things didn't necessarily get better for African Americans writ large under Bill Clinton. I will say that Bill Clinton did a lot of good for this country, for African Americans too. And, we could also look now at the Barack Obama presidency and say, well, we thought that Barack Obama was going to do all these great things for Americans, and in particular Black Americans, because he was the first or second Black president, depending on who you ask. But the record is now essentially there. It's in the books. And arguments have been and can be and will continue to be made that Black folks didn't quite fare so well under Barack Obama. Would it be fair to say that he duped African Americans in 2008? I don't think that would be fair at all. So, look, Michelle Alexander, it's a great piece. If you haven't read it, you should. And she makes a variety of keen observations about this country and the Clinton years. But I think the narrative should not be that we were duped, but rather that we had a hope that went unfulfilled.